Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. You know we always have some pretty intense stuff to get into, and today is no different. We're diving into a story that has been all over the news in Ireland about this guy, Enoch Burke.
Yeah.
So he's been in prison for over a year, right? But here's the thing. It's not for like a typical crime or anything. He's there because he refused to accept transgender ideology at the school where he was working. And get this, his mail is delivered by a van, completely decked out in a giant pride flag. Just picture that for a second.
It's a very strange situation. I mean,
Yeah.
really shows the clash between personal beliefs and kind of how society is changing. We see this a lot more now where traditional values and newer ideas about gender and all that just they clash.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely got people talking and arguing, probably more arguing, honestly. So, okay, let's try and break this down a little. Who exactly is this Enoch Burke? And what in the world did he do to end up in prison?
Well, Enoch Burke, he was a teacher at a secondary school in County Mayo in Ireland, and he's a pretty devout Christian. And the school suspended him, and then he was actually imprisoned for refusing to address a transgender student by their preferred pronouns. He says that doing so, using those pronouns would be against his religious beliefs.
Wow, that's quite a stance to take. And it's not like he just gets like a warning or something, right? He's been in actual prison, like Mountjoy prison, for a long time.
Yeah, as of today, it's been 467 days, which really shows how strongly he believes what he believes.
Yeah, I mean, I get standing up for your beliefs, but to be willing to go to prison for that long, it's pretty intense.
It shows how powerful belief is, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. So, okay, let's get into this pride van. It seems like, just another layer of complexity of, just craziness on top of everything else.
Yeah, it definitely makes things more complicated. The van belongs to An Post, the Irish Postal Service, and they've got this van, decorated with a huge pride flag and this word broad on it, which is the Irish word for pride, obviously. And they use this van not just for special occasions, but for their regular, everyday deliveries, including to Enoch Burke's house.
Man, I mean, knowing how he feels, I can only imagine what's going through his head every time he sees that thing.
Yeah, you can imagine. He sees it as them trying to intimidate him, to bully him, like they're pushing and this is his words, a sodomite agenda on the people of Ireland.
Oh, wow. So for him, it's not just about being in prison, but this constant reminder, this symbol that he's so against, being driven right up to his home, like every day.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And he argues that An Post, being a public service funded by taxpayers, they're abusing that position by promoting, pushing an ideology that is so against his Christian beliefs and his understanding of what marriage should be.
It's like they're purposely poking at him.
Hmm.
And it goes deeper than just being offended.
Yeah.
He sees this as them violating his rights.
Right. He says this whole situation, it goes against the live and let live principle, the one often associated with the LGBTQ plus community. He feels like he's being punished because he has beliefs, which, freedom of religion and all that.
So it sounds like he's saying, okay, if you want tolerance, then you need to tolerate my views too.
That's a big part of his argument, yeah,
Yeah.
that there's this double standard going on. And that real inclusivity means you have to respect all views, even ones that are not popular or challenge what everyone else is saying.
Interesting. So what did he do about this? Did he just, sit there and get mad about it?
Hmm.
Or did he actually try to, fight back somehow?
Oh, he's not one to just stay quiet. He actually complained about the van back in July, voiced his concerns directly to An Post.
And what did they say?
Well, not exactly what he wanted to hear, I'm sure. They hit him with sanctions. They told him he has to get a mailbox or else they'll stop delivering his mail altogether.
Hold on, wait. So they're making it harder for him to get his mail because he doesn't like their van.
That's exactly how he sees it. And he also says they never gave him a real reason for these sanctions, which just makes him even more frustrated and angry.
Wow. So you've got Enoch Burke, who feels like he's being targeted and silenced. And then you've got An Post, this public service taking a very strong and public stance on this really sensitive issue.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, where's the line between freedom of expression and potentially causing harm or offense?
That is a big question, and it's really at the heart of all of this, I think. Do these big institutions, especially the ones funded by us, the public, do they have the right to be promoting specific views, especially on issues that are as, sensitive and nuanced as this whole gender identity thing?
It's something a lot of people are struggling with these days. And there are no easy answers. We're seeing it everywhere, in schools, companies, even government.
Yeah, it's a sign of the times. In this case, with everything going on, the prison and the van and everything, it's really bringing all these questions to light.
Totally agree. It's not just an Irish issue either. It's a global conversation, a global problem, and it's not going away anytime soon.
It's definitely a lot to unpack, that's for sure. But before we get too far into it all, I want to hear from you, the listener. What do you think about all of this? Where do you stand? Do you think Enoch Burke is being treated unfairly? Or is it okay for Anna Post to be promoting inclusivity, even if it might offend some people?
Yeah, we want to hear your perspective. What are your thoughts on this whole balance between what individuals believe and what companies try to tell us, especially when it comes to these really sensitive social issues?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, this whole situation with Enoch Burke and this Ampost Pride van, it's not just about LGBTQ plus rights or even religious freedom. It kind of shows this bigger problem, this power struggle between regular people and these massive institutions.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. It does make you think, like, how much influence should a company or any big organization have, in shaping how we talk about these complicated social issues these days?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And it's something we're seeing more and more of these days. Back in the day, companies, they didn't want to get involved in anything controversial, but now there's so much pressure from customers and even from people inside the company to kind of align with certain values. Right, right, I get that. And that's when things get messy, I think. Because, yeah, some people like it when companies take a stand, but for others, it feels like they're pushing their agenda on you, like they're trying to force you to agree with them.
Exactly. Think about it. You rely on this company for something important, like your mail. And they're out there promoting something you're totally against. It's like, well, I need to get my mail, so I guess I'm supporting this now, even though you might not.
And that's how Enoch Burke feels, right? With this van, he sees Ann Post as forcing an ideology on him and anyone else who shares his beliefs.
Precisely. And it's important to understand his argument here. He truly believes that real inclusivity means respecting everyone's views, even the ones that go against the norm.
Yeah.
He says that silencing people, even if their beliefs might seem old-fashioned to some, well, it goes against the idea of a truly tolerant and inclusive society.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of being silenced or feeling like their opinion doesn't matter, even if they don't agree with everything Burke says. It's about being heard, being respected, I think.
It is, and this case really shows that struggle, that tension between promoting equality while also making sure that no one feels like they can't speak their mind. It's a tough balance, and it needs open and honest conversation, even when it's difficult.
So how do we even begin to navigate all of this? Where everyone's beliefs and what companies are saying and how society is changing, it's all kind of colliding.
That's the question, isn't it? The big one. Is there a way to be inclusive and celebrate diversity, but without making others feel excluded or like they don't belong?
Yeah, that's the key right there. Maybe it starts with just acknowledging that different viewpoints are valid, even if we don't personally agree with them. To really listen and try to see where someone else is coming from before judging them.
I think you're right. It's about realizing that everyone has their own story, their own experiences that shape how they see the world. And even if we disagree with their view, we can still, approach them with empathy and respect.
It's so powerful, empathy. It's easy to get stuck in our own heads, our own little bubbles, but really trying to understand someone else, even if we don't see eye to eye, it can be a game changer.
Absolutely. It's about bridging those gaps, finding that common ground, remembering that we're all in this together, even if we see things differently.
It's not about silencing the people who disagree, but giving them a platform, letting them be heard.
Exactly. And that means being open to hearing them, to different perspectives, and maybe even challenging our own assumptions.
This whole thing with Enoch Burke and the Ampost Pride van, it sparked a lot of debate, strong feelings on every side. But it really gets down to some fundamental questions about freedom of expression, what role big institutions should play in our lives, and how we as a society, how we define and try to achieve true inclusivity.
Yeah, and remembering that progress, it's not always a straight line. And dealing with these really complex social issues, it takes constant dialogue, empathy, and a commitment to finding some kind of common ground, some way to move forward together.
We've talked about Enoch Burke's side of things and what Ann Post did and kind of the whole picture in Ireland right now.
Yeah.
But there's this other part we haven't really gotten into yet, like the legal stuff.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, are there any, laws or legal cases that could help us understand this situation better?
Oh, yeah. That's a key question here. This whole case, it's right in the middle of all these complicated areas of law. You've got employment law, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and what these public services are allowed to do. It's like they all overlap and get all tangled up together.
So I guess there's no easy answer legally either.
Not really, especially when it comes to laws about social change. They're always evolving, kind of like a river, always flowing, always changing. So it's pretty likely that this case and others like it, they'll be argued in court for a long time.
This whole thing with Enoch Burke and that Pride van,
Yeah.
it's really got me thinking about inclusivity. We hear all the time about diversity and inclusion, but what happens when those ideas, when they clash with what people believe or their freedoms? Like, where do we draw the line?
That's the big question, isn't it? How do we build a society where everyone feels included, but we also respect everyone's differences? It's tough, and it needs a lot of careful thought and open discussion. There's no easy solution, no one-size-fits-all answer.
What really stands out to me is empathy. It's so easy to get caught up in our own heads, our own opinions. But but if we could just take the time to really understand where someone else is coming from, even when we disagree with them, that can make a huge difference.
I totally agree. Empathy is crucial for bridging those divides, finding common ground. It's about realizing that everyone has a story, everyone has experiences that shape how they see the world.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe it's about understanding that just because we disagree with someone, it doesn't mean we have to disrespect them. We can have different opinions, different beliefs, but we don't have to attack each other.
Right. It's about making it safe to have those conversations, even when they're uncomfortable, when they make us think.
This whole deep dive, it's been a real eye-opener, I gotta say. It's
Yeah.
like a reminder that the world is complicated and there's not always a clear right or wrong answer. It's about embracing that, the gray areas, and realizing that even things that seem simple, they can have all these hidden layers.
Yeah, and it's about realizing that these aren't just theoretical debates, they're real. They affect real people, real lives. And that's why it's so important to talk about them.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into the Enoch Burke case. We hope this got you thinking, maybe even inspired you to look into these issues a bit more on your own.
Yeah, and remember, your thoughts, your opinions, they matter. Keep asking those questions, keep learning, and keep talking about the things that are shaping the world around us.